Was anything?
We are.
Okay. Okay, good morning and welcome to the CEDC Loan Committee meeting of June 16th. First up on our agenda, I guess we will, if everyone has had a chance to look at the minutes, if there are any questions or edits, we would be voting to approve the minute. So unless there are any questions or changes to the current minute, I would need a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
And then I'll need a second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? So carried. Next, we'll take a look at the portfolio dashboard, Martha.
Sure thing. Thank you, Rachel. Loan client A, we actually had a conversation with the principal and he agreed verbally to bring his account current over 4 months. We did email him the agreed upon terms. We also sent him the same information in writing via certified mail. And we're hoping to see a check in the very near future. Loan client B is 30 days past due and we're in touch with her. She's been unable to set up her account on the portal and wants to be making automatic payments. We continue to work with her. Loan client C did make 2 payments in the month of May, but because of the timing, it didn't bring him current, but he's responsive and he's working at it. Loan client D, we've had that discussion. They remain in arrears, but they also remain in frequent contact with us. And loan client E, we're in touch with him and we do expect to see a payment in the very near future. Are there questions on the portfolio dashboard?
No question. So we'll need approval on the portfolio dashboard as well. Need a motion to approve presenting to the board. And a second? Just need a second. Great, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. So
I'd like to point out that the $12,000 in arrears is 0.0048% of our outstanding portfolio. Well, I mean.
And most of them are less than 30 days, you know, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're talking stuff we're not gonna collect, it's probably very, very small.
And, you know, over the 10 years, where we've paid 5.8 million in loans, it's $168,000 in write-offs. And, you know. But it's not because of a lack of hard work on Steve and Martha and Kat's part.
No, it happens.
Tracking people.
okay, next up is the loan committee charter. This is presenting what is currently in the charter. Are there any changes?
Don't believe there were any changes. It's just reviewing it in the ordinary course of business. The bylaws state how many members there should be and it's consistent with how we've operated the committee in the past, so we recommend it for approval.
Unless anyone has any comments to the current loan committee charter, we'll need a motion for approval.
Make a motion.
Thank you. And we'll need a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Right.
Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay. Moving on to, we have a lot of loans on the agenda today. So first up is Carter Plumbing and Mechanical.
Yeah, Carter Plumbing and Mechanical, located in Copake. He is a plumbing and mechanical contractor. His request of us is a $15,000 loan from our SBA loan fund across 48 months, 7.75% interest, monthly payment being $364.44. Purpose of the loan, purchase equipment and provide some working capital. And our collateral being a lien on the business assets and personal guarantee of the principal. This is Carter Plumbing and Mechanical in Copake.
So
Any questions?
Let's open it up for questions.
Well, I have three questions on this. You know, based on what I read, the credit rating being 544. $10,600 credit card debt that's in collections.
Yeah, although not a large sum, had some payment issues, payment history in making those payments. And has now, begun working with, credit counseling to bring that up to date.
We told him that would be a requirement for the loan, and he's already had the initial meeting with them. We have another client that has worked with this same, it's a nonprofit credit counseling firm. And we've seen what they've proposed. He hasn't accepted yet. But we're going to encourage him to do so. We can't really force him to. He's well aware that he is not making payments. He's been working for his father-in-law and simply hasn't been able to keep up with those payments. But he told us that on day one, when we told him he was going to have to meet with the credit counseling firm, he already has done that. He has stated more than once that he intends to fully repay those debts.
And the only other question I had on this was, and I'm not sure that this is even our business to ask this, but it states that he's working out of his house. Is that okay? I mean, zoning wise, commercial wise, you know,
He's got a computer and he parks his truck there. He's gonna use his personal vehicle until he can generate enough revenue to buy a new one.
It's an in-demand field, I think, you know, like. And it's much smaller than most of the loans we see, so I think it's good that we're just stepping outside of the hospitality space a little bit and.
Originally, he was looking for enough money to purchase a new vehicle and he was able to see on his own that that would be a tough sell based on his credit rating. So he's gonna work with the truck and use a magnetic sign and he has some clients already lined up.
And I think he's, prime candidate for, building into the documentation, some type of, regular check-ins with us and, providing him with technical assistance, to be sure that, he's, because this is his one chance to turn his financial picture around and, be a successful, plumbing and heating contractor.
He did provide a business plan that he had created on his own, but it was lacking the financial projections. So we had him work with Brian Zweig and we can continue to have him work with Brian.
Yeah. Because the goal here is, not to throw money at someone, the goal here is to use this as an opportunity for him to establish a business and as I think Justin, you point out, it's at a level where we will collect it whether he's successful or not, but hopefully it's an opportunity for him to build a business.
Sure. Okay, yes. So, if there are no more questions, I'll look for a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Justin, and a second. All those in favor? Okay. Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to Pursuing Rising.
So, Rachel, we're
Yeah.
going to postpone this one until July. There were some unanswered questions and they weren't quite as far along as they had hoped to be. And so with their blessing, we're gonna wait a month.
Okay, so we'll put that off and move on to
I think
putting
just the nature of the business.
Exactly.
Have a bunch of questions.
Nobody.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what business is,
Yeah, it's a retail clothing, very high-end retail clothing store and there's private equity investors and there's loans. We do have someone who's willing to guarantee the loan, but we still felt that we should postpone it until we had a few more.
we were following the Goldman rule, don't be first in.
Well, we may need to be early in on that one, but maybe not first. Okay, Pudding Meat. This is a restaurant. And they are looking for $50,000. 20,000 from the SBA microloan fund and 30,000 from the CEDC revolving loan fund. The SBA would have a 72-month term, the CEDC would have an 84-month term, and their monthly payments would be $812. Again, same interest rate of 7.75. The use is to purchase fixtures and supplies and provide a little bit of working capital. We'll have a lien on business assets, personal guarantee of the principals, and this is contingent on them receiving their mortgage.
I had a couple of questions on this. One was, seeing as they are buying real estate and hoping to improve that real estate, would we get a mortgage behind, obviously support.
Yes, we can, we'd be in third position. We can certainly
I'd,
request
I'd
that.
rather have that than not.
These people will know we're there.
Not that we'll ever collect on it if it hits the fan. What's the value?
He always gets us $5,000 to go away.
But exactly, it just makes it more serious, and and I know this is a drum I've been beating for quite some time, but a sources and uses would be really helpful. And maybe I have some inside knowledge because I met with Avery and Ryan initially, and I think they're really good at what they do. I think they have the chops. I think if anybody can make it, they can. But I still think Germantown is really, really difficult and they're paying a lot of money for this thing. So, ultimately our bank just didn't have the appetite for another new restaurant to finance. So they understood, they went to a different bank and then they called me and was like, oh, we need 50,000 to build out the space. I'm like, well, that's kind of perfect for CEDC. But my one question is, how come the other bank and SBA financing didn't wrap that all in and take a look at the whole picture? Like with some of these projects, I wonder if we're just not funding enough, like you know what I mean, that they're not quite gonna get over the hump to actually.
It's gonna be challenging because at this point, I don't think they're gonna do it until October 1st.
It's just a hell of a time to open a restaurant.
It's
Well, fall
right
is
at the end of the season.
Right, well, fall is great. except
Yeah,
for
but then you go
October.
right into the winter.
Sure, and as you saw, Steve and I created financials for them that we thought was kind of a worst case scenario. Which shows them losing money January, February, March, just like every other restaurant.
Yeah.
So that's the hump they're gonna have to get over. I don't think initially they thought they were going to need any additional funding. We had them work with Brian Zweig again, who suggested that they, have some money in the bank. I think there's a little bit of leeway, when we created the financials that we thought were more realistic, we were very high on the cost of goods sold. I know we were, but I thought they were low in their
But they're
projections.
incredibly low.
And then we also think now we're high on the labor cost, but we didn't touch their salary and we think there's some leeway there. They're gonna be living upstairs above the restaurant. So what they're gonna have to figure out is how to get through that first quarter. And so I do want to have another conversation with them. I think that this 50,000 gives them a little bit of cushion. They initially were looking for 30. But I guess I also want them to convince me that they have the resources to make it through that first quarter.
One of the challenges, I live in Germantown and we own the hotel across the street, so I'm really familiar with how hospitality in Germantown plays out. One of the challenges is that a lot of, you see it in Hudson also, but it's even more dramatically obvious in Germantown because there's so few spaces available for commercial. And a lot of the businesses don't connect with the locals. So I read through the marketing plan. So the marketing plan is like Gaskins. And it sounds like Nick and Sarah will be helping them along and kind of getting them established. But it's too bad because there's an opportunity to connect with locals. And they even talk about the plan being in the neighborhood, but a lot of times they're not connecting with locals. So that would be a way to help your business throughout of the season. So it would be, I don't know if we ever talk about that. I've talked about it in Germantown.
And what would that look like,
How do you connect with locals?
other than offering an $8 hamburger?
I mean, out in the Hamptons, sometimes they have like, certain days of the week, or there's a locals discount, like literally if you show your license and then people know, there's just a little bit of a nod to locals. But no one does it up here. It's just something that.
Spaghetti.
exactly, just, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Something. to
I would
bring
say
people
even
to.
beyond that, at one point, when I was the president of the Columbia County Bar Association, I reached out to Gaskins because we like to go north of the county, south of the county.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring 30, 40 attorneys for dinner, and they said, oh, we don't do that. Just like a hard no. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, right, we'll go somewhere else, but
Those are people with money that are gonna come
I
back.
would
They'll go
think,
back, yeah.
Or maybe I don't know if they had a private room or would they have had to turn away locals to accommodate your group? Sometimes,
Well, it was during the week, it was. I was flexible and it was
Because we
sort
don't
of
really
late
have the-
evening, yeah, just.
We don't really have an association with the chamber so much and our economic development is not really like
Yeah.
having good guidance. But anyway, it's like, is there an opportunity to have that kind of connection to the people who live locally? I don't know.
Certainly, something
If
we
you have
can
any
suggest
interest in
that they explore based on, what they think might work for their business. That's a good. point.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm an advertising branding person, so I see people's advertising, so when someone's like, someone's like a PR genius but I see that the locals aren't connecting, there's a disconnect.
You can even have a local night, and if somebody from New Lebanon comes, they get the benefit. I mean, you don't have to ask them for.
Yeah, word of
approval.
mouth is huge, so.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Much as the chambers can also facilitate, like business after hours.
right, that's what I'm wondering, I never brought it up before, but this one seems like such an obvious,
No, it's a
and
good point.
and when I was heading the arts and tourism committee, that I would ask that question, is this for locals or is this to attract tourism? And it's a good question to ask, but
And there's a lot of both.
Yeah.
The second surgeries, transplants, fit into both categories.
yeah. So we will need a motion to approve this loan to bring to board. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Rachel. Need a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Justin. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to showroom Hudson, another pocketbook factory.
Yeah, so this is Showroom Hudson, located here in Hudson, the retail shop. Their request of us was $100,000. We've split between two loan funds, 35,000 from the SBA, 65,000 from the CEDC loan fund. Different terms in terms of length of, 72 months on the SBA, 84 on the CEDC. Monthly payment being 16, 14, 43. Interest rate, of course, 7.75%. It's a working capital loan, and our collateral being a lien on business assets and the personal guarantee of principals. This is Showroom Hudson here in Hudson.
Now, we presented this last month at a $50,000 rate. And they apparently secured a loan, private loan for the balance of the funds, but they wanted to increase the ask to 100,000.
We described the business, it's a great concept, and, the principals, or at least one of the principals is been involved in the development of the project, the pocketbook factory project. And, the city IDA, has assisted in financing the project itself. It's a 40-room hotel, and 35,000 square feet of the original building. And then the other 35,000 feet, was approved for offices, retail and a restaurant. And, it's I just described the business model, because it was somewhat unique.
Yeah, the model, it's retail, but it's different, artisans throughout the community instead of, renting storefront on Warren or wherever in the area. Actually rent square footage within the space and pay a percentage of sales to, this organization. So it'll be unique.
Are they still on track for opening?
Yes, they're planning to open between Labor Day and Columbus Day. On the hotel, They did have significant structural issues, that came up, with a 90-year-old building when they got, into the bones of it. And, they, were in the CEDC, separate from the group that we're talking about with respect to the loan, but, with respect to the project, they were in to, try to understand what's the closeout with the IDA in terms of, the sales tax exemptions, and moving forward, with their pilot payments. And the Hudson IDA had also put in a requirement that they provide, a training program, and that they have job fairs locally in an attempt to, we just put that in. Obviously, with a hotel, the opening of a hotel is perfect for a training program, but, we've had issues with people who think we should have it permanently. But, if you have 30, 20 people working in a hotel and one of the housekeepers leaves, the other housekeeper is gonna train them. You're not gonna bring in someone from, there are businesses that are out there that come in and train people in boutique hotels. And, presumably you'll hire someone who has hotel experience. And the existing management and coworkers can tell you, what side of the pillow this hotel likes to put them in versus, but, we've looked at sustaining a hotel and hospitality training program. But there's just not enough demand, to do it, where you have enough critical mass to make it worthwhile hiring that instructor to come. But there certainly is an opportunity when you open a new project like this where you're hiring 20 or 30 people at a time.
They also qualified for a $15,000 micro enterprise grant. I know it's a small number, but that takes care of their point of sale system, and they had to jump through all the hoops to qualify.
So I'm just concerned about maybe a little bit of conflict of interest here, because 25,000 of this loan is going to fund the security deposit. Now, the same guy owns this business, owns the,
No, he works,
well, he's,
he's an employee.
I say, can't they just waive that? And
You told me that they're renegotiating that lease, I
Yeah.
think, and we don't have that new number yet.
And the business assets, I mean, so the inventory, they don't really have, because it's like the consigners.
Correct.
So it's really unsecured.
Yeah, we have that point of sale
There's
system.
nothing.
Yeah,
And it's a new concept and a new space, right? Will it draw the traffic off of Warren Street? It's a big unknown.
well, one of the partners already has a shop on Warren Street, so she knows some of the designers that come up, they're already shopping on Warren Street. They wanna they think they can attract those same designers as well as the general public. And the key is, of course, to find retailers who don't already exist in town, and I think they've already had some success at attracting those.
What, one question I had was, what are the hours of operation? Will it be open when the restaurants open later? Sometimes you get these store places in hotels where it's just closed all the time.
Is that in the
It's not
business plan?
made.
I will look for it and
Yeah.
certainly report to the board next Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we are looking for a motion to approve. Just need one motion, entertaining one motion. Motion for approval. Now we'll need a second.
We can make this contingent on having a guarantor. We have talked to the principals about that.
Like
If
we
we
have to
if
go
we
back
don't get
to,
a second, then
okay,
we're not ready to vote on it.
we have a motion to table it.
If we don't have a second motion, I need a motion now to move on to table this until Martha
To be represented.
getting a guarantor, and will be represented at the board meeting.
motion for that.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Yeah? Anyone opposed? Okay, so carried. Okay, last on our agenda, the Friends of the Public Square, I imagine. You were here for that presentation?
Yes, I am. My name is Keith Kanaga, and it's my pleasure to be here with you. I'm the Secretary and Treasurer of Friends of the Public Square. Using the Tucker maxim, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, I sent you a lot of stuff at your request last weekend. And hopefully that's been helpful, but we'll talk about that a little bit. We're asking for $100,000 revolving credit to bridge the gap between the payment for park renovation and the reimbursement from the reimbursement grants that we have from various entities in New York State. We currently have, excuse me, 5 grants, reimbursement grants from the state, totaling $920,000. This is a project a joint project between Friends of the Public Square, or FOPS, and the city of Hudson, which is the owner of the park. Both parties are active in the project. We started the project in 2021. The mayor, the Department of Public Works have been very engaged from the beginning. The Common Council has been active in passing the requirements that the various grantors have had. Most recently, the city has also applied for a $2 million grant from a new program specifically for the park. So FOPS coordinates and manages the project. We cannot do this without the city, and we're very thankful for their participation and partnership in this program. I provided a copy of the memorandum of understanding, which was entered into between the city and FOPS early on, and hopefully that helps clarify our relationship with them. We were established in 2021 as a not-for-profit corporation. We're an ordinary corporation, but a not-for-profit. We have no shareholders. We have no owners. We're registered with the Charities Bureau of the Attorney General and also with the IRS as a 501c3. Our board consists of 12 members of varying skill sets. We have an architect, we have a landscape architect, we have an attorney, we have a couple of retired executives, including being very retired. And so we have a terrific set of skills, including, thankfully, from my standpoint, someone who knows how to use accounting software so that we actually have good statements. We provided our financial statements for the year end. Hopefully those have been useful for you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss that. Our cash currently is about $64,000. We had a reimbursement request that was granted from our primary grant early in the year, and so that improved our cash situation. But that's typical of what happens with us. We make a payment to the contractor, or in this case, to the landscape architect. We file a reimbursement once we reach a level of expenses, which is sufficient for a reimbursement request, and then we wait for the reimbursement to come in. And in the meantime, we have outgoings for the contractor and the landscape architect, which is why we need the revolving credit. You asked for the total project costs, and so provided the total project costs. This shows 3 phases. Phase 3, called the streetscape, is not a current project. This is a vision that people have in terms of recapturing some of the space that has been taken up by streets. If you look at Warren Street and at Columbia, you'll see that the sidewalks on the line, there's an indent on the sidewalks at the park, and then an outdent both east and west. And there's a conversation about it, taking back that street space and expanding the park. That's going to require a whole different set planning, it involves a different state agency, Department of Transportation, and so that's something of the future. Phases 1 and 2 are what we're really talking about. Primarily in this instance, phase 1. We put out a bid, contract. I didn't send you the 725 pages, so you should thank me for that. But we had two bidders. Colorusso was the winning bidder with a substantially lower bid than the other bidder. And it's essentially similar to the expectation of our bid of $1.7 million. So the decision we've had to make is, do we continue to wait for substantial private donors? Or do we go ahead with the sum that we already have on hand, slightly over $1 million, and start the development of the park? And what's now happening is the negotiation of the specifics of the contract, which will allow us to expend no more than what we have on hand, but with demonstrable results in the park. So for example, the relocation of the Veterans Memorial, it's not terribly, you can't see it from almost anywhere. And when we presented it to the veterans groups of putting it on Warren Street, they're very excited about it. And yet it's a much more visual and much more attractive feature of the park that we already have funding for from a grant from D.E. Barrett. So some of those things that we can actually improve the interior of the park with the pathways and the grading and so on. And then while we continue the fundraising for the residual part of that, which would be phase 2, which is the fountain, which is strikingly even more costly than the rest of the project. So that's the plan for that. I gave you the slide deck, which you've had on the thing. That's exactly the page I want, so thank you. I wasn't able to get this redone in time for this meeting, so I've used the old one. The only thing that's different about this is instead of starting at the end of October, where that arrow is, you need to move it up to the end of June in terms of visually, but the time frame is the same. It's a 365-day contract for the construction period. And that shows both phases. That will not happen. It will be only the phase 1. So it's that purple line that starts sort of halfway in 2025 and continues through the remainder of 2025. So that would actually start in July or August of 2025 and continue into July or so of 2026. The scope of work you asked specifically for. So I've provided the scope of work from the bid. There's a lot of stuff in here. I think since I'm not a contractor and I'm not terribly good at that, what it applies to me is there's been a lot of work that really figured this out. And our landscape architect is very good at that. There was also the construction document, the construction estimates. And so I provided that to you as well. That way fits in nicely with the scope of work. And then lastly, you asked for sources and uses in another conversation. We have our sources, our uses are very specific. It's all the data that's been shown in the construction contract because the funding, the operational expenses for POPs is de minimis. So this is the funding that we have on hand, which is now a little over $1 million. Those kind of documents show where we are using. So that's where we are. We certainly appreciate your considering it. We can really use the bridge financing, and I think you'd be very pleased with the results, both in the park and the continued beautification of Hudson. Any questions for me?
I guess the biggest question I have is the grant funding and how much work needs to be done to obtain that. Because we have it listed as, you know, as funding obtained, but that's not really here yet, right? It's not.
Well, actually, we have contracts with the state, with each of the state agencies. There are two, basically. One is, Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. That's the 500,000.
Sure.
That contract was completed, late last year. We have received our first, our first request, has been, we were successful in getting reimbursement. The other contracts are administered by the dormitory authority, housing, yeah. Those are for what would you call specific interior projects, so like veterans, the Veterans Plaza. There's another one for the seating around the around the fountain and so on. Excuse me. I'm very lucky I have a person that's pushing that, Joyce Thompson,
Okay,
who puts all this stuff together, and, you know, magically, she was able to get the first reimbursement request through without any kickback, which I was pretty pleased with. I was sure we were gonna have to put it in 2 or 3 times before we got it.
yeah, that's always my fear. So it just takes a while, and there's not enough cash to keep the project rolling.
Yeah.
Not enough to get to that next reimbursement, it just stalls out. So,
But I guess the question is, have you drawn on the dormitory authority?
No, we haven't done any of the projects, specific projects for the dormitory.
Because, you know, our concern, I think, is whatever is backing this loan, that you're not out getting reimbursed on it, and at the end of the day, when the music stops, there's no chair to fill our pass back. So if, you know, we would have to have, you know, if there's 250,000 at the dormitory authority, and you used our 100.
Yeah.
You know, when that money comes back, that really has to clear out the line of credit.
Yep.
So that you can spend it again.
Yep.
And then when you spend the second 100, you're on your own. Because, you know, we can't be in a situation where you've used all the dormitory authority money at a point where there's nothing left to pay us. Right, so that money almost has to go through we almost have to co-submit the reimbursement request with you. Right, because otherwise, if you're drawing that money and we're not aware that you're drawing it, and it's all been drawn down and spent, how do we get paid at the end?
Well, I appreciate your concern about that. I can tell you that's certainly
Well,
not,
not your intent, but
not our intent, and
Yeah.
we're certainly happy to work with you
Yeah.
so that whatever,
Yeah.
whatever reporting or whatever.
and they would, you know, I think that my conversation with the dormitory authority is they will sign an acknowledgement that the check would actually come to us. And that then we would, you know, but we have a process in place so that you can finish that work. That $250,000 phase of the
Yeah.
project. And at the end of it, you know, whatever has been. You know, we don't get ahead of ourselves in terms of drawing that money and not having it available as collateral for us.
Yeah, conveniently, each of the grants on the dormitory authority fits into the 100,000
Right.
number.
Yeah.
Pretty nicely, but the largest one is 125.
Right.
Well, we can come up with $25,000, but stick on top of your 100, that's.
And we have done this, we've done it twice for Philmont.
Yes, and in that instance, we had the client set up a restricted bank account. So that when that reimbursement came in, it went into that account, and the only way they could withdraw was to put a check to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again,
That's
it's not for in any way inferring that we don't think that you would operate any differently, but just for transparency purposes for other borrowers and for the public, because these are public funds, that, you know, we have put in place extra
Sure.
protections or process to ensure that we're repaying.
Well, I was a commercial vendor for a dozen years, I'm,
Or more.
yeah, or more, I'm used to this kind of, yeah. thought
So
part.
you must have been impressed when we only had a 0.0045 default rate over.
Very, yeah. But, and talking about the specific account, the restricted account, I mean, our banking is a Bank of Green County, so I'm sure we set something up.
But just to be clear about the structure, it's not exactly a line of credit, right? It's just a bridge loan and then you have to come back.
We really can't do
do
a
it
line
again.
of credit,
Yeah.
similar to what a bank does, yeah. So we would have to make you a loan, you'd have to repay that loan, and then if there's, if you haven't spent the entire amount, then we can.
But I think it has to be almost set up that there's up to 2 draws. If we get the money back, we,
We can set up a multi-draw.
yeah, a multi-draw so that, they're not in the middle of having to stop work because they don't know where that hundred's.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But our exposure would never go over.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that would save you from having to be up here multiple times.
Well, we could move this in the afternoon, so when you come to the housing meetings, we wouldn't have to have you come, you wouldn't have to come. We do appreciate you coming in, this is kind of a unique thing for us.
Yeah.
We're actually meeting with Hudson Development Corporation in the next 2 weeks to discuss with them, other not-for-profits that are in need of this reimbursement model. When I was at the Center for Economic Growth, there were not-for-profits that needed to do this, and we couldn't find a bank that was willing to do it directly. So, we had assets, and so what we did is, we got the loan and then we loaned it to the not-for-profit, and then we paid the bank back, but they had multiple sources of being paid back out of our funds.
Yeah.
So it certainly, and we also know that in some cases, the dormitory authority is fairly quick because of the nature of the fact that they primarily work on construction projects.
Yeah.
But with ESD, you could go 60 to 90 days before you reimburse. Because of the fact that it's gotta be packaged, it's gotta be 14 days before the next board meeting. It's gotta get on the agenda, it's gotta be approved in New York. And so, I do think that, it's understandable why a direct lender wouldn't be interested in, doing it. So providing this as an intermediary where you're providing a community benefit, it's in our mission.
I talked to somebody down in Kingston who mentioned that the city of Kingston actually has a
Fun.
fund for these because they are difficult for banks. Often when you have a project with no cash flow, with no collateral, and the only way out is that this reimbursement goes perfect. So,
Well, and that it's a 4 corner phased project. And it's not the wide open $500,000 grant.
Right.
right, well, that makes sense.
Okay.
This is something along the lines that the Hudson would, probably support. I don't know at what level, but I just wanted to give you my card for that.
Perfect.
As long as you get the Wi-Fi and the.
Well, we'll see. I'm running into so many problems now with all of our free public Wi-Fi that we put in during COVID because it was for, students and access. And now all of a sudden, these parks and towns, they're like trying to hook their cameras into it and stuff, and I'm like, you can't do that. Can't do that, but yeah, definitely could be an option. I don't know what the goals are for the park in that manner, but.
Good, thank you very much. Anything else?
Thank you, Keith.
Good.
Don't go away till we vote. No. Just take it.
Mike, I'm taking this seriously.
Should I recuse myself because I'm retired from Cal Russo's and he mentioned they got the bid? Am I okay or?
Now that you're no longer there, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions before we move on to voting for this? If there are no other questions, I would need a motion for approval.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Justin, and a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. Great, thank you. Great. So that takes us to the end of our agenda and to public comment. I don't know if there's anyone out there.
Anyone on besides? us?
No. Okay, if there are no other things to discuss, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor, yeah. Okay, anyone opposed? So carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We made it through.
Wait, you mean?